Welcome to Global Citizen Life. Today on our podcast, we have Dr. Rose Aslan. She is a transformative life coach, educator, academic, community organizer, and breathwork facilitator. A single mom based in Istanbul, she quit her position as a tenured associate professor of religion. She now supports women getting unstuck in their lives, find a healthy work-life balance, learn tools for embodiment, and bring more joy to their lives, along with a healthy boundaries and self-awareness. Well, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sally. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
So what brought you from, or how did you go from the US to Turkey and specifically Istanbul?
Yeah, great question. So I first ended up accidentally in Istanbul back when I was an undergraduate many years ago. In college, I was backpacking through Eastern Europe and I ended up in Bucharest, and then it was like $15 ticket to Istanbul. So I went and I came here. This was a long time ago, and I just fell deeply in love with the city and this country. Something really moved me. I felt so comfortable. So ever since then, I've been coming here. I lived in Egypt for 5 years back when I was a student, and I would come here regularly, Istanbul and some other towns in the country of Turkey. And I felt gravitated towards this country and this city. And I can't really, it's almost hard to explain, except it's a feeling more than an intellectual concept. And 2016 and 17, when I was still a professor, I came here just for the summer because I wanted to say art. And then the next year I came for a research project. I basically designed a project that would allow me to come and, pretend I'm doing work. I was doing work, but really I was enjoying my time in Istanbul. So I noticed I referred to it as my happy place. It really was. I lived in Los Angeles, wasn't my happy place. I made do and I found beauty and friendships in that city, but it wasn't where I felt rooted. I didn't feel home. And the concept of home is really important to me. So 2021, we're in the middle of the pandemic. I had my sabbatical for the whole year. I had just gotten tenure at my university in Los Angeles, or outside of Los Angeles, and I decided to come here because I was like, it's my happy place. I could have gone anywhere in the world. It's like, why not go to the place that I really enjoy? I know some people. I knew I would have a great experience, so I came for the year. And guess what? It's been nearly 3 years, and along the way, I quit my job and decided that I'm never going back to Los Angeles. So I stayed because the first half of the pandemic, or first half of 2021, was very difficult. There was lockdowns and everything was closed and I couldn't meet anyone. But as soon as things started to open up, I was able to build a beautiful group of and community of women in my life, and just like my social life flourished, and my healing journey really opened up here, and my health improved for many reasons.
That's fantastic. I love how you designed the opportunity to go back to a place
Mm-hmm.
that you loved and you enjoy. And I know what you mean. I remember back when I was in high school. So it's been a few years. And I remember I was standing outside in front of the school with a couple of my friends, and I said to them, I think I've been switched at birth. And they said, "What? Your parents aren't your parents?" And I said, "No, not literally." I said, "But they're just, I'll have this feeling in me like I'm not supposed to be living in Canada for my entire life. It just doesn't feel right."
Mm-hmm.
And that I had, as I said, high school. So I was probably 16-ish years old, and I stayed in Canada for many, many more years
Mm-hmm.
after that. But I completely understand what you mean. And then when it was time for me to go, there was a number of things that happened, and it was just this feeling like a gut instinct where it was just, it's time to go now. Like
Mm-hmm.
I need to go now. Um, and I made it work. I did things.
Yeah.
I first started out in Costa Rica, and I've been living in many places since then. But I do understand that more of that feeling of
Yeah.
knowing than meticulous planning
Mm-hmm.
that some people do. And not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just we have the desires to go
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons. And some people plan more, and others we just have a feeling.
Exactly. And actually, when I was 17, I moved to Canada. I'm from the Bay
Oh,
Area, California, but I already wanted to leave the US at 17. So I went to University of British Columbia for my undergraduate degree. It was not America, but it was very close to America, and almost
yeah,
American, but still Canadian, right? So this desire has been within me since I was very young too. So I'm on the same page as you. That's something also made me feel that, yes, the US is my country where I'm born and raised, but I feel like a global citizen and that the world really is like where I belong, not just the US. Yeah.
right. And so, so many questions. So you now have a temporary residency, is that correct?
Yes,
How has
unfortunately.
that process worked for you? Like, what was it like going through the process? How long did it take? What were some of the struggles and or surprises
Yeah.
going through that?
That's a hard question because I love this country, but the most difficult thing about it is the instability of being able to stay here permanently without being a wealthy person. So I just got my renewal last week, and I had to wait 5 excruciating weeks to find out if I was going to get renewal or not. Because basically, right now, unfortunately, there's been a lot of anti-immigration sentiments, anti-foreign sentiments in this country for a lot of different reasons that we won't get into, but it's been a little bit more difficult. And 2021 was fine. 2022 was good, and it was getting a little bit weirder towards the end. And 2023 has not been good for foreigners. I'm lucky that I have a Western passport, but for Syrians, for people from Arab countries, other countries have been really awful for them. So for me, the issue was a lot of Westerners have been rejected lately, even Westerners. Um, First, people cannot immigrate here anymore for temporary visa. As far as I know, they don't give out first-time residency visas. They only give out renewals, and even only some of us get renewals. So I was very lucky, and I'm so grateful that I got my renewal for the, I don't know, fourth time, I think it was. I applied in March, and I only got 6 months, which was very stressful because I had to invest in a year worth of health insurance and documents, and I paid for a year, but I only got half a year, so I had to apply again this month or last month. So it is difficult because I feel like this is my home, but the government doesn't necessarily agree in the way they make me do the amount of paperwork they ask. It took weeks to prepare the paperwork and the stamps and the the different signatures I needed to get the residency visa. It's a temporary visa that I renew hopefully every year, but sometimes every 6 months. And a lot of us are quite nervous about the situation. If I had more income, then I would buy a property and it would be much more stable. But I'm not at that point where I'm ready to invest in a property. So I have to hope that every year I will get that renewal. And so far I have. So God willing, it'll continue.
Well, we'll keep our fingers crossed for you
Thank
for
you.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, and okay, so yeah, that's a very stressful situation. What about opening a bank account there? Do you have a bank account there?
Yeah, that's easy. I did that as soon as I
Okay.
arrived. Before I just had the tourist visa. And I even opened up with my passport before I had the visa, the residency visa. So that's actually easy. So some things are surprisingly easy. Like yesterday, I went and did the final step for my Turkish driver's license, and it'll be coming in the mail any day. But that was a 4 month process of excruciating bureaucracy. But for the final process, I just made an appointment online. I went to the government office. In 5 minutes, I was in and out, so it's like, that was too
Wow.
easy. Like, what's the catch? It's in the mail. But it was also a 4 month process, right?
Right.
So a lot of these things can be really challenging, for sure. Yeah.
And that's very interesting that pretty much just with your passport that and your tourist visa that you could open up a bank account and not
Yeah.
have to have some type of residency or visa or work contract or something like
Yeah.
that in
It,
hand. So it
yeah,
made it
it
very
might
easy.
depend on the bank, and it
Oh
depends on the
yes.
branch. Like my bank, there's only one branch on my part of the city that will serve foreigners. Others will just refuse to
Okay.
work with me, literally, like they just will ignore me. But there's one where there's a bank manager who's kind and speaks English and deals with foreigners specifically. But I can't say all banks are like this. It's not always as easy as it was for me, and that was in 2021, so maybe it's harder now. Yeah.
Right. Well, it is true that each bank um I guess yes, down to the branch level.
Hmm.
But each bank definitely has different policies and
Hmm.
procedures and requirements and
Yeah.
things. So it is a bit surprising that down to the branch level,
Hmm.
though, that it would still
Yeah.
vary that much. And so if somebody is trying to open up a bank account in another country, don't give up. Just you
Yes.
got to be persistent and keep trying, because there will be ones that work with foreigners, and as you said,
Yeah.
there's ones that just won't.
How it works is like here in Istanbul, we have this amazing foreign women's group that's like the best resource ever for all the foreign women. And this is where we get the tips and pieces of advice for which bank branch of which bank can we go get the account at? Where can I do open my utilities? Which specific clerk should I speak to? So thank God for these groups of foreign women who really support one another.
Yes, that is so helpful when we're moving internationally, especially there's different ways too, because some people are moving perhaps with their spouse or
Mhm.
partner, and that person has a job and
Mhm.
they're going along with. And then for those who have kids, they'll meet people through that because they have kids
Mhm.
going to school and stuff. And
Yeah.
then there's ones that are more like me that
Mhm.
just do it by ourselves
Mhm.
and go. And so there's I'd say there's pros and cons to
Mhm.
absolutely everything, but sometimes there can be a few more challenges just because we do have to deal with
Mhm.
everything by ourselves,
Yeah.
and we don't have that somebody else
Yes.
to help start that network or to help
Mhm.
get things done.
Exactly. And I must say, even though Istanbul is a very big city, English is not widely spoken, especially in government offices and banks. It's very rarely spoken. So I do a lot of my Turkish isn't amazing yet, unfortunately. So I do a lot of this through Google Translate, sometimes
Okay.
asking my Turkish friends to help on the phone or coming with me. But it's really, I'm at the mercy of people being patient with me to deal with, the difficulty in communication as well. So that's also another block in doing anything here.
Right. And, I find that to be very similar in most countries.
Hmm.
When you're dealing with government things, just because we come from English speaking countries does not mean, and nor should they have to speak English to deal
Hmm.
with us. We are there. And I was the same when I was in Costa Rica, or in Spain, with dealing with government things,
Hmm.
is having a friend or
Hmm.
translate, deal with that, because
Yeah.
they just don't. And I mean, we're in their country, so they
Exactly.
don't have to
Exactly.
accommodate us,
Yeah.
really. It's nice when they can,
Yeah.
it makes it a lot easier
Yeah.
for us. But at the same point, it should not be expected.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
So let's see, how often do you go back to the United States to visit family and friends?
Great question. I think I've been back twice in a
Okay.
little less than 3 years. Yeah.
Right. Well, and
Um,
part of that was because the pandemic was going on. And so
yes. Yes. I
that
didn't go back
that
this
makes a
year. I
difference.
just because my family came to visit me in
So
Istanbul, and then my
nice.
son actually went back with them to California so he could have his American summer, but I stayed back so I could have some time to travel and be by myself. So that was also really lovely.
That works good too. That's one of the benefits as well of us living abroad, is then family and friends can come visit us, get
Exactly.
the vacation, and we can show them things like, okay, yes,
Yes.
here's all like touristy stuff that everybody needs to see.
Yeah.
But then let's go see the real parts
Mhm.
of the city or the country
Exactly.
that the tourists don't always go to. And that's always a nice thing.
Exactly. I love showing friends and family like where I live, what my life is like. And the best thing about where I live is a lot of people in my networks and friend circles from around the world. Because of being an academic, I have networks around the world. A lot of people pass through Istanbul. So on a regular basis, I'm meeting with people who were close friends or acquaintances, and then they pass through and we get to meet up. And it's just so lovely living in a hub, because I don't think I used to live in hubs where people would pass through. But Istanbul's a gigantic hub. And regularly I'm meeting people from different places, and it's just lovely to continue those friendships in this
That's
magical place.
great.
Yeah.
That's great. And so, how would you say that your life compared to like now compared to when you're in the States, on just like the average day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
how is it different?
Yeah, it's like night and day. Back in the US, I was mainly on the tenure track, mainly a single mother for most of my time as an assistant professor. I worked about an hour from my university, so I had an hour-long commute on the Los Angeles highway system. My son first went to preschool at my university, and then he moved to school near the house, so that was complicated as a single parent. You know, he's somewhere and I'm somewhere else, having to go to
Mhm.
meetings past his pickup time. Like, it's just so complicated, not being able to afford a babysitter because being on a single income as a in Los Angeles was not easy. So I would start my morning, I don't know, 6:30, get the very small child, get him ready for, get him dressed and eating breakfast and lunch, drop him off to school, get to the university, spend all day teaching in meetings, trying to do research, service, many things. Come home, it's dark, when it's the middle of the
Mhm.
winter. If I'm lucky, go to the gym, but even though I'm exhausted, put him in the childcare in the gym, you know, go home and just veg out. And then grade and prepare for classes after he sleeps, because I have more work to do. On the weekend, grade and prepare for classes, write in my book or my research projects, because there's always, when you're an academic, there's always something to do. And if you're not doing that, you feel guilty. So you have to do it. So I often I didn't neglected my son, but I favored work over spending more quality time with him. My life is so different now because I run my own business. I work from home. So I have no commute, which is like the best thing ever. I hope to never have a commute again. So I get to enjoy Istanbul without commuting. I think for people who live here and commute, they don't enjoy the city very much. So I wake up, I get him ready for school. I give him breakfast, make his lunch. The school bus comes right below the apartment building. So he just leaves from the door and I say, goodbye, I love you. And he gets on the bus by himself. He's almost 10 now. So he's gone till 4:30. So I go for a walk if I can at my beautiful park nearby. I might do yoga, work with my trainer. I like slow mornings, which I never had in LA.
Mhm.
And then I start working, having meetings, coaching, collaborating. I do that till 4:30. He comes home. Then I spend time with him. Then after he sleeps, that's when I kind of start having more calls with North America, people in North America, trainings, whatever. I always have things going on where I write, but it's very enjoyable to do those things. So that's my schedule's very different. I couldn't imagine. It's so much more enjoyable, and there's a beautiful routine that I'm trying to establish and get more stable that really brings amazing benefits. Yeah.
I'm the same way. A lot of similarities.
Mm.
Single parents get waking up early, drop my daughter off. I had a safety consulting and training company when I lived in Canada. Then sometimes if I was teaching at one of the universities, I'd race across town, teach class all day, then try to rush to be back before daycare
Exactly.
closes. Hopefully there wasn't too much traffic.
Yep.
Make dinner, try to spend some time with her, put her to bed, and then work on my business, my company, and everything. So
Yeah.
I completely
Yeah.
relate to that. And I also relate now because now living in Europe, I love that my clients are in North America and I'm in Europe because
Mm.
I still get up around, it varies. Sometimes I want to be early and get up at about 6 a.m. Sometimes it'll be more of 7. But I still like that early time. I love my mornings and I have my morning routine of getting up, um, whether it's yoga, reading for a bit, meditating, going to the gym or jogging, like whatever it may be. And then, yeah, check some emails, do some stuff, but not really get into
Mm.
calls and things like that before 1 o'clock in the
Yeah.
afternoon, because even 1 o'clock in the
Mhm.
afternoon is very
Yeah.
early. And I've had a few people that are like, yeah, I was looking at your podcast, but everything is really early in the morning. And I said, well, that's my from 1 till 7. That's when
Yeah.
I book. That's my 7 hour. And I said, if like, I'm sorry,
Mhm.
if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit because I, I don't want to be doing more than that. And I love having it. I was back in Canada for a few months earlier this year, and it was very strange to be waking up and within an hour to have a meeting or a podcast or work or something. And I just thought,
Yeah.
I don't like this.
Yeah.
Like I love my morning routine.
Mhm. Yeah, definitely. I love slow mornings. And if, I'm naturally a night owl and I've learned to embrace that, I can't force myself to be a morning person. So I'm just embracing how it works. Yeah.
Right. And so your son was around 7-ish when
Yeah.
you left Istanbul
I
for
think
Istanbul,
about that. Yeah, about
around
that.
there.
Yeah. He was in first
How
grade. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so about 6, 7, right around there.
Yeah.
Um, how did he adapt and think of the move and maybe some challenges, or like I know kids are pretty adaptable. I moved to
Yeah.
Costa Rica when my daughter was 13
Mm.
and she hated it. It
Oh
was just
no.
the timing of 13
Yeah.
was not good. So how was it with
Yeah.
him being younger? I think would probably be better or easier, but again,
Yeah.
they're still missing family and friends.
Yeah. It was not easy, especially because the pandemic, I registered him in a
Mm,
bilingual Turkish school thinking that if I stick him in a school that's bilingual, he's just going to absorb Turkish. But it turns out the problem was that it was almost all Turkish kids with very few foreigners, and the English was too easy. It was just so simple. And then the Turkish was too advanced. And I think language is not his forte. He has dyslexia and some other learning challenges. It didn't work, and he had some bullying issues, so I had to pull him out of that school, and I sent him to kind of the bigger international school in our neighborhood. And it's been a much better experience since then, because there's no bullying. It's all in English. I really had hoped that he would get more immersed in Turkish society and make more Turkish friends and learn the language. But I realized that because this wasn't his choice to come here and I wanted him to enjoy it, I had to send him to a school, at least for now, where he can still feel some sense of home. Even though he's one of the only American kids, the language of the school is English. And it's actually kind of cool because he's one of the only native speakers who actually speaks English at home and at school. It makes him kind of cool. He's from California. So I think he's one of the cool kids. His Turkish is not great, unfortunately, either, because again, it's almost all foreign kids who speak a huge amount of different languages. He likes it here. When he goes back to the US and he comes back, he's sad because he misses family and he misses being able to communicate with everyone in terms of
mm.
language issues. But I think he really does appreciate it because he loves history, so he visited all the castles. I mean, he's traveled more than any of his peers from his old school in the US. We've been to Mexico, Egypt, and he's lived in Turkey for nearly 3 years. What an experience for an American kid. It's so rare. So I think he does appreciate the fact that he gets these experiences. We take a ferry ride and we see this amazing sunset over the Bosphorus, and he appreciates that, because I really try to teach him about the history and culture and religion. And so sometimes he might complain, but I know that he does appreciate, and I know when he's older, he will benefit and appreciate what he has received from this experience.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I mean, let's be honest, especially with kids or even people in general, we'll always find something to complain about, right?
Yes.
As we're a kid, we'll complain about something. Even as adults, there's things that,
Mhm.
oh, why do they do it this way here?
Yeah.
Or why isn't it done that way? Or just we'll find little things
Yeah.
to complain about. But it's true that they get older, I do believe that they'll appreciate it more. And with him at such a
Mhm.
young age, and he still has time to catch up
Yeah.
on Turkish and learn more if he chooses to do so.
Yeah.
And if he, wants to continue living there as he gets older, even into his teenage years and stuff, I'm sure he'll probably pick up on it a little bit more. Just for
Yeah.
some people, as you said, language isn't everybody's forte,
Mhm.
and for some of us, it just takes longer
Yeah.
than others.
Definitely. I mean, he's already planning to go to college back in the US, though. So, yes.
Well, you never know. By the time that
Yes.
comes around,
We
we'll see
shall
what's going
see.
on in the
We,
US.
who knows? Yeah, where he'll go. Yeah.
Who knows? He may change his mind and actually just want and might maybe go somewhere in Europe
Yeah, he
or
definitely might.
something. You
So,
never
yeah,
know.
definitely.
Um, that's the great thing of once I find it's for most people, it's that first step. It's
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
move. It's that first travel by themselves. It's those
Yeah.
firsts that are always the hardest.
Yeah.
And then the travel becomes easier because as
Mhm.
he gets older, if he wants to go back for the summer, he can just hop on a flight and go. Like because
Totally.
that's what my daughter did. At first, it was always
Mhm.
because of her age. It
Yeah.
was back and forth, just us. And then I knew that it was going to be getting to the point where she'd just want to go for the summer
Mhm.
and to fly
Yeah.
by herself. And so I don't know, the last 1 or 2 times that we went, I said, okay, I'm going to follow you. I'm going
Mhm.
to, you have to do everything just because
Yeah.
the next time you're going to be doing it by
Yeah.
yourself. Um, and it was fine, and she did her first flight and everything by herself, because went from Costa Rica to Houston, Texas, from
Wow.
Houston then up to Calgary. So it's
That's
quite long.
complicated. Yeah.
Yeah, three and a half hours is one flight, 3 hours is the next, with a layover in
Yeah.
between. So it's still a long day. And then after, and she came back home. So obviously she did it coming back. And I said, like, how was going both ways? How did everything go? Obviously I spoke to her in between time, and I said, now that I've done it twice,
Mhm.
I actually kind of prefer traveling by myself. And I was
I
like,
love
oh,
it.
what? You don't want to travel with your mom? She's like, no, I don't mean it that way. But she's like, it's different. And I just do whatever I want, even though, like, it's only whatever you want in the airport. So it's
Yeah.
not that entertaining. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it's good. And it gives that confidence as
Hmm.
well to, just to do more things alone. So I think
Oh,
it's great.
totally. He's already this summer, he flew back with my family to the US and he came back on his own as an unaccompanied minor at the age of
Okay.
9. So he has gotten
Wow,
very
I'm
brave.
surprised
Yeah.
at that
And
age. Wow,
yeah,
okay.
well, because it's a direct flight, luckily. And
Okay.
it would have been very complicated for me to go there, very expensive. So as much I was like, if
Mm,
you want to go, can you handle this? And he was willing to do this. And so he made it fine. And they take care of the kids along the way.
yeah.
Turkish Airlines is a really good airline. They're very
Mhm,
Turkish people are very friendly towards kids, very open. So it's a good airline to go with, especially. Yeah,
mm.
so it worked. He did it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. At 9, I think
yeah,
my daughter was, well, I don't think she wasn't considered an unaccompanied minor. I think she was
mm,
considered like
yeah,
able, like an adult to
yeah,
travel by herself, but she was
yeah.
only 16, I
Wow,
want to say.
impressive. Impressive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, but
Yeah.
we had done that flight so
Yeah.
many times, because when we first left, I still had my business in Canada. So we went back and forth probably 4 or 5 times the
Mhm.
first year, 3 to 4 times the second
Yeah.
year, again, at least
Yeah.
three the third. So it was a lot. So she was
Mhm.
very used to all of that.
Mhm.
So
It's a special experience for children to live abroad and just experience different way of living, to go on local adventures, and just opens up their mind to such different ways of living, and to be much more open-minded towards people who are different than them as well.
absolutely, absolutely.
Mm.
And what about the cost of living there? So you're in Istanbul, so I'm sure that it's more expensive in Istanbul than obviously
Yes.
other areas. It's the
Mm.
bigger cities are always
Mhm.
more. But how do you find the cost of living there compared to back in the US, whether it's the
Yeah.
last time you were there or when your parents came
Yeah.
and mentioned about cost and prices?
Yeah, good question. So when I first came here, it was very affordable. Especially I live in a neighborhood that's not the European side is a bit more expensive. I live in the Asian side of the city. It was really not it was very easy to live here. You'd buy a bunch of groceries and it just felt like almost nothing. Unfortunately, with COVID and the inflation, the recession that has hit the whole world, things have gotten quite pricey here compared to when I first came in 2001. And it's not that long ago. But I heard even eggs are like $10, $12 for a carton in the US now. So it's still nothing like Los Angeles. I mean, I was living in Los Angeles on, a decent salary. Professor's salary wasn't enough, but it was enough to live. And I was living paycheck to paycheck and my money just dripped out of me. I owned a house, and so a lot of the expenses went into the house. And I didn't have a babysitter. I didn't really pay for entertainment. It just went into life expenses. So here, my rent is much more affordable. Luckily, I have a small, humble apartment that's perfect for the two of us. What the difference is that I can afford things I couldn't in Los Angeles. So I can afford to have a massage, to go to a physical therapist. I can afford health insurance, private health insurance. It's very basic, but in the US, it would really be too much money. I couldn't have quit my job in the US and stayed in the US, basically. I can afford all kinds of different things that really increase my quality of life. Like taking the ferry is the most enjoyable thing ever. It's like my water therapy, and it's, I don't know, maybe less than $1 to take the ferry here in Istanbul across the Bosphorus, right? So there's all these different things that I can now do. I can go to the grocery store and buy the things I need, right? And the things I want too. I can yeah, it's more things are accessible that are completely out of reach in the United States, completely, especially in a very expensive city like Los Angeles. So even though it's getting more expensive and I have to be a little bit more tight and a little bit more frugal, because my goal is to work less so I can enjoy my life and live a very slow life. So I don't want to work myself too hard. I do live in a smart way, but in a pleasurable way too. And there's a lot of pleasures here that aren't expensive. So
Right. Yeah. No, I was in Istanbul. Oh, when was it? 20 2021, 22. Maybe it was 2021. It just seems weird to be because yeah, the pandemic was like 2020, 2021.
yeah,
So it would have been near the end of 2021. Sometimes
yeah,
when I think with the pandemic, it kind of
yeah.
throws off all my timing of
All
when I
blur.
was where.
Yeah.
And I was only there for 10 days. And you're right, there's just so much to do, so much to see, so many free things or very inexpensive things. And it really is about what do we want? Do we want to work more to make more money? Or do we want to work less and enjoy life and just find those things that we enjoy doing that are at a lower cost? And a lot of times, there's a lot of things in every city
Mhm.
that we can do that don't have a high price
Yeah.
tag on them.
Exactly. The city is full of, I mean, I just love walking and I love going to the ferry and I love petting cats. All of that is
Oh,
basically
they've got so much of
everywhere.
that there then.
Yeah. Basically, I'm here for the cats, and that is just everywhere accessible. You can find cats everywhere and they don't charge to pet them either.
Right, right. And so you were saying that in your work you're mostly dealing with North American clients. You work most so in the afternoon when your son's
Mhm.
at school. And so what is it exactly that you do for your clients?
Yeah, so I work with primarily women, especially women who are spiritually oriented, and I support them. They're stuck in life. They find themselves in the hamster wheel, in an abusive relationship, in some situation that's really uncomfortable for them. And they're like, I need something to change. I feel stuck. And so I work with them, and I don't have a set curriculum. I've gotten my various coaching certifications. I'm also certified as a breathwork instructor, but really, I intuitively work with them to find out who are they, help them figure out who are they and what do they want in a very authentic way. And so I teach them along the way some breath work, some embodiment, but really it's amazing how seldom women are asked, like, what do you want? What do you love? What are your passions? What are your delights? And when we go very deep into this, and because my background as a professor of religion and spirituality, often the people who approach me have interest and they want to talk about these topics as well. And maybe they have some trauma attached to religion or spirituality that they want to work through too. So I also work with that on them.
Excellent. And Rose, if they wanted to get a hold of you or in touch with you, where can they do that?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram under Dr. Rose Aslan, Facebook, Rose Aslan. I have a website, compassionflow.com, and I'm also very Googleable. Can you say that? Googleable.
We can
Yes.
say whatever we want. We can
Yes.
say Googleable. Yeah. And I'll
Yes.
make sure that we have links to all of
Yeah.
those in our show notes for everybody to make it
Yeah.
easy. And so one final question. If people are unsure about moving, they want to, they're scared, they're nervous, what is a piece of advice that you would give our listeners?
I think they need to be quiet and go into themselves to see what is it they want and how does their body feel. Because for me, I was a very analytical person, as an intellectual, as an academic, and I was listening to my mind. When I'm quiet and I go down to my body, it turns out the body has a lot of wisdom. So I think that I advise them to stop listening to their mind and all their thoughts and just drop down and see, do they feel safe? Does it feel good to think about moving to another country if they're ready for that? Sometimes it's not the right time. Sometimes they should have done it last year, right? So their body also contains a lot of wisdom, and so don't just make rash decisions, and also very carefully calculate and plan, a big move across the world, because it is especially if you're a parent, for example.
Absolutely. And I think that's great advice. And I just want to say thank you very much for your time today. I know our listeners got a lot of valuable information, and hopefully some of them will be in touch with you if they want to work with you or need some
Yeah.
help.
Thank you, Sally. It was an absolute delight to speak to you and to meet another person like yourself who also found home elsewhere outside of her home country. So.